Hi and welcome to Slick Willy Flying. Today we're going to do a muddler variant. It's a Zonker Muddler. I'm not going to go and say that this is a beginner fly. This is like a transition from beginner to maybe someone who's been tying a little bit longer only because of the deer hair. But honestly, there's nothing to fear here. This is a simple fly and it is a basic fly. It's not expensive material. So I'm going to go ahead and use Zonker Strip, and in natural, this particular natural is a little bit more on the gray side than tan. I'm using two colors of reflective chenille, polar chenille, brown and orange, and I'm going to use two types of deer hair. I'm going to use this winter deer hair for the longer tips, and then I'm going to spin just regular tan body deer hair, nothing fancy. That's the part that I spin up. And then for eyes, I'm using these 5mm yellow epoxy eyes, and the hook's a mustad hook in size 1. And I am using a little bit of silly legs, and I don't see them here. The silly legs are clear chrome and gold flake is what they are, and I just think they look great on this fly. Again, it's really not that hard to fly. It's a really cool fly. This is great for freshwater, saltwater, inshore, brackish, you name it. This is an awesome fly after that first cold front in South Florida. If you're chasing, bass or something, this is a great fly. So I hope you're enjoying a cocktail with me. Don't forget to hit the like, subscribe. Let's change the camera angle and let's tie this fly. Okay, I want to put a touch of super glue like I do on a lot of my flies. And I don't know if I mentioned I'm using 6.0 Veevus. We're just going to start with a decent thread base. And the first piece of material that we're going to put on is the Zonker. So really, you have to decide on what your overall length is. At this point, I almost would prefer it to be a little bit long. Rather it be long than short. So what I'm trying to determine is my tie-in point, because I want to separate all the fur as cleanly as I can. I like to use a needle and just make sure that I get all this fur out of the way. And then I set it right on the hook. A lot of times I'll moisten it because it'll just help me. And then I tie it nice and hard right at that designated tie-in point. And this is why I like to use good strong thread. Now I'm going to go ahead and put some polar chenille on. I'm going to use that brown first. I want to make sure that I get it all the way tied in right to where that Zonker finished. Trying to draw back as much of the fibers as I can. I'm just going to start wrapping this up the hook shank. Trying to get as many of these fibers back as possible. The more fibers you get back now, the better this fly will look. I don't know, I get about, halfway up the shank. That's about far enough for me, and then we're going to capture that. And we can cut off that tag. Now we're going to go ahead and start the orange polar chenille. The orange, I don't tend to give it as many turns. I just really like the combination of the colors. That's 3 full turns there. Maybe one more. Capture that nice and hard. Now we can trim the orange off. Beautiful. So now I like to spread the chenille as best as I can, making a nice little spot where the zonker can just lay down. I like to pull my zonker forward, get as many of these fibers going in the correct direction as possible. And now I just want to capture that zonker right on top of that hook shank. Perfect. We can cut off this tag end. At this point, I like to get my silly legs going. So the way I use my silly legs, you notice I didn't cut off the tag. So it makes it easy for me to work with them. I just divide them up about as even as possible, and I get them right on top. And then I make sure after I get one good turn, I put them where I want them. I lock them in nice and hard. So now I have to take a minute and just make sure that I like where everything is sitting. At this point, I generally give it a little whip finish or something just to make sure that the work that we have, if the thread breaks or if anything should happen, that we don't lose the work that we've done. Okay, so we talked about that I have 2 types of deer hair. I have this winter deer hair, and then I have regular, deer body. The winter deer hair, I just think it has this awesome appearance. It doesn't stack. It doesn't spin like regular deer hair. It just doesn't. But I just love the way it looks. So we're going to use some anyway. And I'm not going to worry about like really truly stacking. Actually, we can stack. Why not? It's been a while since I stack anything. But before I stack, I'm going to go ahead and get all these shorts out. Eventually one day I should make a video on how I stack deer hair. There's probably 1,000 videos on how to stack deer hair. Maybe I skipped that. Beautiful. As carefully as we can, we're going to transfer this right to the top of the hook. Couple of loose wraps. Just making sure that I like where it's sitting. And I just make sure that I get it around the whole top, at least the top half. I'm going to hold that and I'm going to pull that tight. And you saw that it spun some, but not really. And that looks great. I'm going to do one more clump of this winner on the bottom half. I'm going to go ahead and trim a little bit, which will make it sit just a little bit nicer when I bring the deer hair. And we're going to stack it as well, since we stacked the top. We won't stack any others, that I guarantee. Pulling out all the shorts. Into the stacker. Beautiful. You want to get about the same length. Couple of loose wraps again, making sure that we like where everything is sitting. I pinch that one I want, and then I can pull the rest tight. Perfect. That ended up really great. Now, one of the tricks to working with deer is that if you really want to make deer hair look good, you gotta press it, you gotta push it all back. So now we're gonna switch to regular deer body. And this stuff, it's just take out the shorts and put it on the hook and spin it. This is all going to get trimmed. There's literally no reason to get too crazy with getting this all stacked up. Just spin it on there. Definitely don't want to catch your rubber legs. Give it a little push back. I like to push it back and wiggle the thread through the deer hair. I'm going to put one more clump, pushing this all back. Beautiful. That came out pretty nice. So now it's a whip finish. And a little trim job. Alright, the very first thing I'm obviously going to trim is anything that's going in the wrong direction. Now what I don't want to trim, I don't want to trim my rubber legs, and I don't want to trim that winter deer hair. The only thing we want to trim is the tag end of the winter deer hair we want to trim, but not the tips. What we do want to trim is the rest of it. But this is going to be a little bit of a unique fly. I'm not going for a round, I'm going for straight edges. So I'm going to use this straight razor, and I'm just going to come in here and I'm going to just gently start working it. I'm trying to make corners. It's starting to look pretty darn nice right there. That's pretty much the shape I was going for. So the last thing to do, every now and then I like to get my little bit of fine tuning. Alright, so there it is. You know, you can fish this fly. Well, you can't really fish like that. You do need to trim the legs. But you could fish this fly after I trim the legs. Pretty much exactly the way it is. I like the legs to be a little bit long. So I'm just going to make them straight. And for now, I'm going to make them as long as I can. So I'm just going to cut the tag off. Okay. And I personally want to use eyes. So I'm using these little yellow epoxy eyes. And a lot of times the adhesive on them is enough, but I can't guarantee it. So I'm going to go ahead and put a tiny drop of gel super glue right where the eye is going to go. And now, because it's so generally messy, I'm going to use as many tools as possible to keep my fingers out of the gel. That came out pretty good right there. I'm going to do the opposite side. And of course, like every other fly that I use with UV resin, I put this in my windowsill and it'll cure for a day. So that's pretty much the fly. I'm gonna play with it a little more. I'm gonna trim it, maybe a little more, tweak it here and there. But you know, hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe. This is a great fly. Freshwater, saltwater. You know, this is a take on a muddler minnow, but with Zonker. And you know, it doesn't have too much flash. I think it just has a good amount of flash. So again, I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you for watching. See you on the next video.